Hello, thank you for joining me today. My name is Andrew Stinson. I'm a Senior Consulting Engineer with Firefly. We're in our Software-Defined Access series, and today we're going to be talking about LAN automation. We're going to look at what LAN automation is, we're going to look at the requirements for LAN automation, and then we're going to see it in action in our lab. So LAN automation is a DNA center workflow. It allows for the automated deployment of our Fabric underlay to new devices, and it uses the plug-and-play onboarding process to do that. There are several roles that we define within our LAN automation workflow. The first is our primary seed. This is a required device. This is a switch that's managed and reachable by DNA Center. It needs to be assigned to a network site. It needs to support the SDA requirements. We can also define a secondary seed device. The secondary seed device needs to be managed and reachable by DNA Center and assigned to a network site. And there needs to be a layer 3 link between the primary and secondary seed. Now, when we define our primary seed, we're also going to choose the interfaces on that seed that we want to do a discovery on. And on those interfaces, we're going to connect our plug-and-play agents. The plug-and-play agents are devices that are in a factory default state, so there's no configuration running on them. The devices will be connected they have to be connected to the primary seed, and those connections need to be a layer 2 link. Now, the seed will discover the devices directly connected to it, and it will discover another level of devices down. So 2 levels deep, we can onboard devices. If we go beyond that, the devices will not be discovered. So as you see here, we have 3 levels. These first 2 tiers will be discovered, but this third one will not. In cases like this, we can run the LAN automation process again, and then choose this plug-and-play agent device as our seed, and then relaunch from there. LAN automation has several phases in the process. And the first thing that occurs is when we start, the primary and secondary seed devices will receive a configuration. If it's not present, they're going to each get a loopback 0 interface configured, so there'll be a /32 assigned to those. The ISIS configuration will be configured on them. And if we've chosen to deploy multicast, then configuration for multicast will be deployed on those as well. There will also be a temporary discovery configuration applied to the primary seed device, and this includes a DHCP server configured on it, and the VLAN 1 interface will be configured with an IP address for the gateway. Once that happens, the seed device goes into a provision state, and then it will be able to discover new devices. Those new devices are called our plug-and-play agents, and our plug-and-play agents, when they're discovered, can be upgraded to our golden image if we've selected one for the site they're being assigned to. And they will also receive a initial configuration. So there'll be a day 0 or onboarding configuration pushed to those devices. They'll be assigned to a site. The loopback 0 will be configured on them. The system MTU will be configured. IP routing will be enabled. The ISIS configuration will get pushed to them. Once they've completed that process, we can then go on and stop the LAN automation workflow. When we stop it, this triggers another set of jobs that will then migrate the layer 2 links between our devices to layer 3 point-to-point interfaces. So all of those point-to-point interfaces, from our primary seed to our plug-and-play agents, any additional interfaces we've defined between our primary and secondary seeds, and any of the plug-and-play agents that have one level other device connected to it, that's a plug-and-play agent, factory default, all of those interfaces will be assigned to /31. They'll be converted, and then the primary seed device will have that temporary discovery configuration removed. The VLAN 1 configuration will be removed, and the DHCP server configuration will be removed. There are several requirements to run the LAN automation process. The first is that we have to have our network sites created. So our seed device needs to be part of a network site, it needs to be assigned to it, and we need to have the network site already created for assigning our seed devices. They can be in the same site, they could be in different sites. If we want to deploy a new version of iOS, then we need to make sure that we have a golden image chosen and assigned to that site for that platform that we're discovering. We need to define our CLI and SNMP credentials, the default credentials for the site. And we need to define a LAN IP pool reservation at the global site, and then we need to reserve IP addresses for the site that we've created. That LAN IP pool that we're going to be using must be reachable by DNA Center, so we may need to do some additional routing configuration to allow that. On our seed device, a few things that we need to make sure is completed is that we want to make sure that the device supports the seed role. If it's a Cat9K device, then there should be no problem. The system MTU needs to be equal to or greater than 9100. IP routing needs to be enabled. All the interfaces that we're going to choose for discovery needs to be a layer 2 or default configuration. We will not be able to do discovery on an interface that has been configured for layer 3. The device must be reachable and managed by DNA Center. It must be assigned to a network site. It does not need to be provisioned to that site, but it does need to be assigned to it. And if we need to go in and make any changes to that device, then we will make the changes, save it, and then we'll need to resynchronize those changes in DNA Center so that it's aware of those changes before we start the LAN automation process. Now on the plug-and-play agent device, we need to make sure that it does not exist in DNA Center's inventory or the plug-and-play onboarding page. If it does exist, then we need to make sure that we delete it from inventory. It needs to have the DNA Advantage license applied to it. On DNA Center 235 and newer, the LAN automation process is going to automatically upgrade it if it doesn't have the Advantage license. But if you're running the current golden image or any image prior to 235, then you will need to go in and make sure that it has the Advantage license. If you're wanting to upgrade the image, then we need to make sure that it is in install mode, not bundle mode. And the device needs to be in a factory default configuration. If it's had previous configuration done on it, then you can run this PMP service reset command that will do all of the necessary deletions of the configurations and everything and reboot the device so that it'll be ready for onboarding. Now we talked about the LAN automation pool a few times, and the LAN IP pool has several uses during the LAN automation workflow. The LAN IP pool needs to be at least a /25, and out of that /25 we're going to have two different subnets pulled from it. First is going to be used for a DHCP pool. The minimum size for the DHCP pool will be a /27. As the IP pool gets larger, then the DHCP pool size gets larger up to a /23. So if we assign a /24 for our LAN IP pool, then we're going to have a /26 for our DHCP pool, and so on. After the LAN automation process is stopped, the pool will be released and put back into the IP pool so that it can be reused if we use that IP pool again later. There will also be a /27 that's reserved. That /27 is where we're going to grab our IP addresses for our loopback 0. And if we configured our multicast or enabled multicast deployment, then our loopback 60,000 will be applied, pulled from that as well. We have the option of selecting a shared IP pool or link IP pool. If we have not assigned that, then our primary IP pool is going to have a /31s pulled out of that /27 as well, and that'll be for all of our point-to-point links. So, for example, if we're looking at how they're going to be used, we're going to have one IP address for each device for our loopback 0 configured. We're going to have one /31 for every interface that's configured during the discovery. So that's two more IP addresses for every interface. And for example, if we had 10 devices with 2 links each, we're going to need at least 60 IP addresses within our IP pool. We're going to have at least 10 IP addresses in our DHCP pool, and we're going to have 40 addresses assigned to our uplinks. There's 10 devices with 2 uplinks each. That's 20 uplinks, and a /31 is 2 addresses. That gives us 40 IP addresses that we need for the uplinks. And then there's going to be 10 /32s that are going to be pulled out for loopback 0 interface for every single one of the devices. We're now going to head over to our DNA Center lab and walk through the LAN automation workflow. In our lab, we see that we have our network site defined here, our DNAC HQ. This is where our seed device is going to be, and this is where we're going to provision our newly discovered devices. If we take a look at our network settings for our DNAC HQ, looking over at our IP address pools, under our network settings, you can see that we have the LAN automation demo already set up. I have a /25 defined here. And I also have my device credentials defined. I have my CLI credential and my SNMP credentials defined. If we head over to our inventory, looking at our HQ site, we can see that I have a 9500 here already deployed. It is in the successfully provisioned. And this will be what we'll use for our seed device. We've already had this device configured. It's run the LAN automation before. So when we take a look, we're already going to have our loopback 0 interface defined. Our loopback 0 interface is all already defined as well. Our plug-and-play agent device has already been wiped. We do not have it in our inventory either. So I'm running 235 in my lab. If you're not running 235, then in order to start the LAN automation workflow, you're going to go to provision and you're going to see a LAN automation option. That's going to start a little wizard that pulls out from the side, and you'll have the same options that I'm about to run through. It may look it will look a little different, but you'll have the same options available to you. If you're running 235 and newer, you come over to the main menu and go to provision and the LAN automation workflow. And we're going to click on Start LAN Automation. The first thing we're going to do is choose our primary seed device. We need to choose our site and then select our 9500 device. We now need to choose the interfaces that I want to discover devices on. I know that I am plugged into 105 and 106, so I'm going to select both of those interfaces. I could choose the secondary interface if I wanted to, or secondary seed device if I wanted to. I don't have a secondary seed for this, so we won't worry about that. Now we're going to choose the principal IP address pool, or the primary IP address pool. I'm going to choose our DNAC HQ site. That's where I have the IP pool reserved. I'm going to choose my demo IP pool. This link overlapping IP pool or shared IP pool, if I chose an IP pool for this, then all of our /31s will be pulled out of that IP pool instead of our main one. In this case, we just have the one IP pool that we're going to use, so all of the IP addresses will come out of the same one. Now, if we wanted to enable multicast on an initial deployment, this is where we would enable that. This is also where we would define an ISIS domain password if we wanted to. If we do define this on our first time of deploying the LAN automation, you want to make sure that you have that recorded, because every time you run LAN automation in that site or using that seed, you're going to have the correct password for the LAN automation to work. We now have the option of defining our hostname mapping. I'm going to call this HQ-9300. If we leave this alone, then the device will be discovered as switch, and then the LAN automation workflow will just apply a -123 or whatever number is available to the device. It'll be unique to each site. And then for this, if I have a specific name I want to use it, I can type the name here. If we're discovering a lot of devices, then we can create a file that will link the serial numbers with the names that we want them to be. After that process, I'm just going to go and click on Review. We see our primary seed and the interfaces, and I'm going to click on Start. When our LAN automation process starts, we can take a look at our session details and see that right now we're in the initialized state. If we take a look at our 9300, you see that we have a DHCP pool already deployed, and see our VLAN 1 interface has already been defined as well for the gateway. We now see that our seed has been provisioned, and what that means is that it's now ready to start discovering devices. Now our device, our plug-and-play agent, is already in a default configuration. It's been waiting for discovery of the plug-and-play server. We see that it will find the plug-and-play discovery. It'll grab an address. You see we have a connection here. Eventually, we will have it pop into our discovered page. Here we are back with our lab. We see that the new device has been discovered. We see it is in the claimed state. There's several states that this device can be in. We can look at our status information icon here and see that it's going to be claiming, and then go to the claim state where it starts the provisioning. It'll do the provisioning or configuration. It'll be added to inventory, assigned to site, and then when it's completed, it will be moving over to the provisioned tab here. If we're wanting to take a look at the details about the configurations, we can click on the device. We can look at our seed configurations here, see what all was pushed to it, and then look at our discovered devices and see what configuration has been pushed to our discovered device. We also have access to our logs. Okay, it's been about a minute or two. Our device has now been moved over to our provision state. You can see we are completed. Now I only have one device, one stack that I'm discovering right now. We could have up to 50 devices in the discovery, and you would just wait for them, all of them to finish and move over to the provision state. Once that's happened, we can click on the Stop LAN Automation. And before I do that, let's go ahead and take a look at our 9500 configuration. Take a look at our interfaces here. So 105 and 106 is our uplinks. So I'm going to go ahead and stop the LAN automation configuration. And as that stops, remember this is where we're going to be applying the configuration for our layer 3 uplinks. So what we'll see is this interfaces 105 and 106 will each be reconfigured, as well as the links on our 9300. We see this 172.16.101.33 address. We will look at our 9300 in just a second. But now we see that our 10 gig 105 interface now has this layer 3 configuration on it. 106 has it as well. If I pop into my new device that was just discovered, take a look at my show IP interface brief. We see we have a loopback 0 configured, and we see that we have the uplink interfaces defined here with 37 and 35. See that we have ISIS configured, and we do have peering successful. If we head over to our inventory, that completes the demo for our LAN automation workflow. Thank you for joining us, and have a great day.